Hello everybody, happy new year. I'm filming this on January 1st, so we're in 2021. I can't believe it. Today I'm going to share with you my favorite books of 2020. 2020 has actually been a fantastic reading year for me, which is so random because this year has been bad in like every other aspect of life except my reading life. I've read a ton of books that I actually enjoyed, but it was such a change from like 2019 where I read the least amount of books in a year that I've ever read, and a lot of the books I read I didn't like, and I actually struggled trying to make a favorites video because I didn't like that many books I read. And I think I talk about that in my 2019 favorites. This year it was the opposite. I read so many books I liked that it was hard to narrow down a list of books that I truly loved this year. So I have a list of 10 favorites and 5 honorable mentions, and I'm so excited to talk about all of them with you guys. But before we get into that, I will say that what I'm gonna do this month of January, I'm gonna try and post a video every day this month. I know that some booktubers have done this in the past where they try and post a video every day to kind of help grow their channel, and I've decided I really want to do that. I really want to see my channel grow a little bit more. I feel like my channel has kind of been stuck, and I'm really looking forward to helping it grow more by creating a ton of content this month. So make sure you have like my notifications on because I'm gonna try my best to post a video every day this month. Alright, so now that's all aside, it's time for my very quick honorable mentions. So something I always do with my honorable mentions, or at least I did except for maybe last year, is I just briefly hold them up so that way you guys know it's an honorable mention, and then I move on to my favorites because I want to talk about those more. Dear Martin by Nick Stone, Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, Broken Hearts, Fences, and Other Things to Mend by Katie Finn, and finally Break Your Glass Slippers by Amanda Lovelace. Now it is time for the favorites. I have a list of 10 favorites. I always list my favorites in the order I've read them because it's so hard to rank these books. I don't know why. Normally there is one book that is like my true favorite of the year, but I love all of these books so much that any one of them could take that top spot. So the first book I have here is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. If you don't know, this book follows this girl named Jude who is a human, and she lives in fairyland, and more than anything she wants to be a knight of fairy. And it also follows Carden, who is a prince of fairy, and the two of them have this back and forth. They really truly hate each other, and then a bunch of stuff goes down. This was actually like the first book I read in 2020, or like the second. It was like one of the first books I read this past year. It blew me away. This one is probably my least favorite in the series, but it still made my favorites, so you're gonna see the other two in this list. I really enjoyed my time with this. I think I talk about it in one of my wrap-ups, but the only issue I had, it was a little repetitive in plot, and if you've read it, I think you know what I'm talking about. But the political intrigue in this series is so insane, and I absolutely was so fascinated by the politics of the different fairy courts and how it all worked. It was so fascinating to learn about. The next book I have here is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is a classic novel. It takes place in the 1920s. It follows this man named Nick as he meets his new neighbor named Jay Gatsby, and he discovers all of the secrets and lies about this man's life. If you haven't read this book, it's absolutely fantastic. I only read it this year because I read it for school. It's my favorite book I've read for school. It's my favorite classic I've read so far. It was so beautifully written. I really want to read more by Fitzgerald because I loved this book so much. The next book on my favorites list is actually another classic, and that is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. So I actually started this book in 2019 because I wanted to finish it before I saw the new adaptation of it, but that did not happen. I ended up seeing the adaptation of it, and then I went back and finished the book. I think part of why I love this book so much is because of the audiobook. The audiobook has Laura Dern as like the central narrator, but it also has a full cast of character voices as well as sound effects in it. It was such an experience, and it's probably my favorite audiobook I've ever listened to. So I would highly recommend the audiobook. The story itself was so heartwarming. After reading The Great Gatsby and after reading The Cruel Prince, it was so nice reading just a truly heartfelt story about family and sisters. I really adored my time with this. The next book I have on this list is Sweet Filthy Boy by Christina Lauren, and honestly I did not expect this to make my favorites list, but it did. This book follows this girl and her two friends. After they graduate college, they decide to spend a fun weekend in Vegas. There they meet 3 guys, they have a wild night, and they all wake up married married to one of the guys. So this one follows Mia and Ansel and how they deal with kind of the aftermath of their wild wedding night, and it was so sweet and so cute. This was the first adult, I think this is technically new adult, romance book I read by Christina Lauren. Before this, I only read Autobiography, which is their YA book, and it was just so cute and so refreshing. I loved Ansel and I loved Mia. I wish that there was more books just following the two of them. And yes, I may have read this at like 2 or 3 a.m. and the ending for some reason made me emotional. So the next book on my list is actually another Christina Lauren book, and that is The Unhoneymooners. This is another audiobook I listened to. When I tell you that I laughed out loud for like minutes because of this audiobook, this book is genuinely one of the funniest books I've ever read. If you're looking to get into Christina Lauren's more adult romance, I would definitely recommend this one. This book follows this girl named Olive and this guy named Ethan. Their respective siblings are getting married, and Olive is the maid of honor, Ethan is the best man. The two of them just can't stand each other. What ends up happening at the wedding is everyone gets food poisoning except for Olive and Ethan, so they get sent on the honeymoon because the honeymoon is non-refundable and the bride does not want to waste it. It is so funny, it's so well done. This is another book where I wish we could get an Unhoneymooners too, because I would love to see just more of Ethan and Olive because the two of them are so good together. They're such a great pairing. The next book I have here is Winter by Marissa Meyer. This is the 4th and final installment in the Lunar Chronicles. I had been putting off reading this book since probably the day it came out. It doesn't look like it's that big, but it's actually like 800 pages, and I was just terrified to read it for some reason. This summer, I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna pick this up, I'm gonna read it, we're gonna be fine. It was so much fun. It was so fun being able to go back into this world because I haven't read a Lunar Chronicles book since I was in middle school. So it's been quite a while since I've been in this world, and it was so nice being able to relearn everything. This world is so immersive, and Marissa Meyer is such a great author. I forgot how much I love her writing style. I'm definitely going to be picking up more by her this year because I truly loved this book. This is another one I listened to mainly on audio, and the audiobook was really good too. I would definitely recommend it. The next book I have here is one that I've debated if it's truly my favorite of the year because there are other books that I do love a lot on this list that I'll be talking about later. But that is The Wicked King by Holly Black. This is the second book in the Folk of the Air trilogy. This book blew my mind. When I tell you, I literally closed the book, my jaw dropped. It blew me away. With this book, I can't really talk about like plot-wise because spoilers, but I will say in this book you get to explore different parts of fairy and you get to explore the different types of fairies a little bit more, and that was really fascinating to me because I love fairy. I love learning about the different types of fairies and like the world they live in. It was so much fun. Just based on that alone, it was so much fun. But the plot in this went by so quickly. This was another one I listened to mainly on audio. I literally finished this book in like a day and a half because the audiobook just flew by. I will say that the audiobook narrator for some reason at certain points sounds a lot like Kristen Bell. I always pick up on it and then I have to think for a moment like, is this Kristen Bell narrating? But it's not. It's someone else. I mentioned with The Wicked King that there are other books that I love just as much as The Wicked King, and I couldn't quite give it the favorite book of the year label because this year I read the Heartstopper graphic novels and I am obsessed, let me tell you. I literally binge read all of these within like 2 days. So well done. If you don't know, this book follows this boy named Charlie. He is a gay teenager who's out at his all-boys high school, and it also follows this rugby player named Nick. The two of them may or may not have something going on. I will say that there is a trigger warning for volume 3 for eating disorders and mentioning of self-harm. So do be wary of that. The author did also put in a trigger warning, I believe. But this series is the cutest thing I've ever read in a long time. The art style is adorable. The story is so cute. First two especially are just these very peaceful, cozy comics. I gave each and every one of these 5 stars because they just kept getting better and better and better. I'm so looking forward to volume 4 coming out next year. And I'm also looking looking forward to reading more by Alice Oseman next year because this comic series is the only thing I've read by her so far, and I am so looking forward to picking up more of Alice Oseman's books. So this next book I literally finished like a week ago, and that is The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. This is the third and final book in the Folk of the Air trilogy. So this is the final book, and it was a very solid conclusion. It wasn't quite as good as The Wicked King, but it was a good conclusion. I'm not gonna deny it. It's obviously on my favorites list. I loved it. This was another one I mainly listened to in audio. After reading this series, I can finally understand like all of the memes and stuff I saw on Twitter about like Jude and Cardan, but it literally took me up until this book to fully understand all those memes. So thank you, Queen of Nothing, for making me understand the Jude and Cardan memes that I have been missing out on. Cardan's character really grew on me in this book, and that's saying a lot because I already loved him from The Cruel Prince. His growth in this novel was so well done. I'm so glad I read this series this year because this series and the Heartstopper series, they're like tied at #1 of my favorite series I've read this year. And finally, the 10th book I'm going to talk about today is one I literally finished like 2 days ago, and that is I Would Leave Me If I Could by Halsey. This is Halsey's poetry collection. I've been a fan of Halsey for a few years now. I got into her music when Hopeless Fountain Kingdom came out, but that being said, I don't consider myself to be like a Halsey stan quite the same way I am with like Taylor Swift, but I definitely enjoy her music. But this poetry collection was so good. I finished it in like maybe 30 to 45 minutes, and I sat on my bed and I was like, I want more of this. The poems are so well written. I was really worried that it was going to be like Amanda Lovelace or like Ruby Kaur, but no, it's not. Some of the poems actually have like her song lyrics in it, so I think some of her songs started off as poems and she included them in here, which is really cool. But this was so well done and I was so surprised by it. All right, those are my favorite books of 2020. Let me know down below if you liked any of these books. Let me know some of your favorite books of 2020 because I do need recommendations for 2021. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Make sure you have the bell notification thing on because I will be posting videos a ton this month, hopefully. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!